white people ended slavery. Is that so? Is that so? Because that's not how I remember history. Okay, white people played a pivotal role in ending slavery. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, like John Brown, he was awesome, right? A lot of the abolitionists were white, or most of them even. But no, like black people did in fact contribute to abolition.
I absolutely hate
wow.
how white people have been beaten down.
First of all, slavery wouldn't have been abolished when it was if black people weren't willing to fight for the Union, which they were, and they did, and that's why that's why Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, because they were willing to put their lives on the line for the same institutions, the same system that enslaved them in the first place. Welcome back. I'm J-Star. This is J-Star. Let's go.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jimmy Talks. So, I'm sure you guys have heard about Carmelo Anthony. He just got sentenced to 35 years in prison for murdering Austin Metcalf, and he will be eligible for parole after exactly half of that sentence, so 17 years. But I want you all to look at all the stuff that happened today outside of the courthouse where he was tried. Look at the footage and recordings that people are pulling out of there. What exactly are you looking at? Well, it is BLM protest light. There are people out there screaming. You have a literal mob of people surrounding the building, foaming at the mouth, and approaching completely random white people on the street and screaming anti-white slurs right in their faces. Ask yourself, what are we doing here? All of this is happening because a kid pulled out a knife and stabbed another kid.
Okay, so there are no anti-white slurs, as you put it. That's not real. That is not a real thing. Okay, please tell me about how cracker is a terrible
at a
slur.
school track meet. These are over a dispute about, like, you can't sit over here or something like that? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what are we even doing right now?
Also, you say slurs all the time, man. Routinely. You can't fucking complain about people using slurs against your people when you use them.
Honest question. We're 1 minute in. Am I going to piss people off already? Run straight to the comments, don't finish the video. I'm just kidding. Not really, actually. Do black people genuinely believe that Carmelo Anthony was innocent? Or are they just pretending? Like, let's stop lying to ourselves and just say what everyone is already thinking. They know exactly what he did. There is no confusion. There is no contested evidence. It is on video. A jury's seen it. And a bunch of kids seen him do it. But you need to notice something very important about the mechanics of how this all works. Notice how they always, without fail, stand up for each other. Black people, I mean. They operate with absolute tribal solidarity. It doesn't matter what the facts are. It doesn't matter how horrific the crime is. 50,000 people will hit the streets tomorrow to defend a murderer purely out of in-group preference. While, on the other hand, white people are so paralyzed by decades of psychological abuse that they will apologize to the guy stabbing them. You know, look at the money that Carmelo Anthony got raised. He got $500,000 for his defense. Where did that money go? Because he ended up using a public defender. That money vanished into whatever they decided to buy. Who organized that GoFundMe, though? Who boosted it? There is an entire dark money infrastructure in this country that instantly activates to financially support black criminals when the victim is white. It's the exact same machine that funds the bail networks for Antifa rioters and looters. We've seen this in 2020. BLM.
What is your evidence of this? Do you have any evidence that black people get they get systematically released from the judicial system? Because from my perspective, which is real life, you know, actual reality, it appears that the evidence is actually the opposite. Black people get slapped much harder by our justice system. Significantly harder, in fact. And this data is quantifiable. Alright, black people get harsher sentences on average for the same crime. That's how it works, man.
They have connections to China. Antifa, they have connections to China, which is a country that wants to see us fall apart. They are funding these insane people with mental problems who are just furthering division in our country. I'm not saying Austin Metcalf, the reason he died is because of China, but you got to see there's a bigger picture here when we start to scrutinize things. When we start to scrutinize these activist, air quote activist organizations, it is a highly organized...
Yeah, no, you're not saying that China killed Austin Metcalf. You're saying that China got Austin... You're saying that China is systematically releasing black people from American jail, which is insanity, which is insane.
Anti-white machine, the people who built this
it's
country,
almost as insane as
to
that.
Investigate where that money that he was given went. Who cares? Fuck it. Think about this absolute sickening double standard we are forced to swallow every single day in this collapsing country. Look at George Floyd, right? A career criminal who had a bunch of, he's been arrested tons of times, who's high out of his mind, overdosing on fentanyl and meth while fighting the police because the police were even there. They got called for a guy using...
He wasn't overdosing. He wasn't overdosing. That is verifiably false. All right, you can get the same coroner report, which you're citing to make the case that he was high on methamphetamine and fentanyl, assuming that that coroner report is accurate. He wasn't overdosing.
Counterfeit money. It was him. Well, what happens when he fights the cops and he dies from all the fentanyl in his system? You know, his family gets $27 million from the taxpayers. They then give him a bedazzled golden casket.
Because he was murdered. He was murdered by a gung-ho cop frothing at the mouth.
The politicians get on their knees.
Who is now free, by the way. My understanding is his sentence was commuted.
The media turns a drug addict into a civil rights
That's
activist.
insane,
What happened
man.
with Austin Metcalf? He was fundamentally a good person with a 4.0 GPA. He was probably going to get a football scholarship. They said they had scouts watching him for college, and he had his whole entire life in front of him. An innocent white kid gets butchered at a school sporting event. What does his family get? They just get harassed. They just get ignored. The national media barely gives him any attention. Funny how that is.
Okay, that's because the person that murdered him wasn't a public servant. He wasn't a cop, right? He wasn't a person that is supposed to protect civilians. Austin Metcalf was murdered by another student that he was antagonizing, and I'm not saying that means it's his fault. Okay, just for the record, I don't think I've said it yet. This murder was completely inexcusable. I understand that there might be people who like revoke my woke card, my communist card, right? But I don't care. Okay, you don't just get to stab someone with a knife or shoot someone with a gun because they push you. Okay, and that is the way it was described in the courtroom. That is the way witnesses have described it that were there. Apparently, the victim pushed Carmelo Anthony, and then he stabbed him with like a pocket knife. And using deadly force against someone, such as a knife or a gun or any other kind of weapon, just because they push you, that's completely insane. Okay, that is totally unacceptable, and it just shouldn't go unpunished in any normal, sane society. So, with that being said, black people are discriminated against. They are thrown in prison all the time, unfairly, unjustly, right? And white people aren't as much. And this is just going off of statistics that are undeniable, right? Black people get harsher sentences for the same crime. You know, white people, some of us white people, we go to jail, we go to prison for things we didn't do. We get like harsher sentences than we deserve. Okay, that's just how the system works. But black people are undeniably discriminated against versus white people. And so the animosity, the resentment, the anger, it is completely understandable. And to say like, oh, well, it's just bullshit, they just hate white people, is just so fucking intentionally obtuse.
For that. But it's never allowed for us. There was always some activist group screaming about whiteness or something being inherently evil, while they live in a white country that provides them with everything.
Yes, whiteness is inherently evil. That's not the same as saying white people are evil across the board. Whiteness is evil. It is a concept. It's an abstract. Okay? Whiteness isn't real. And not as in like it's nothing at all, right? It is like a real concept, a real fucking stupid concept. Because there is no unity under whiteness. There is none. Okay, that's what you guys keep saying, and that's what we keep pushing back against. You're like, oh, white people can be proud. White people can be proud. Yeah, not on the basis of whiteness. You can be proud of your ethnicity, your nationality, your heritage. Whiteness isn't that. Whiteness is just supremacy. That's why it was created. That's why it was thought up by people a few hundred years ago. Okay, your actual heritage, right, Jimmy? I believe I can't remember. I think you said that your family is from like Germany, right? I think so. Okay, so that's your heritage, right? Your family is from Germany, or at least presumably half of it is. And then also, of course, you're an American. Okay, you're like a Midwesterner, most likely. So you're an American, and if you go further back with your family history, you're German. Okay, whiteness isn't that. Whiteness is something else. Whiteness is superiority. Okay, that's why it was created. It was to say, we are white people, we are superior. Which, by the way, ironically, when this concept was first festering, when it was being cultivated by the white supremacist of old, you were not a part of it because your family was German. They were not white. Your family was not white, right? Even if they immigrated to America in like the early days, or if they were like most Germans and came here later. You guys were not white when you got here. They didn't consider you white for a long time. But then it became convenient to allow more people into the white club. Okay, so then the Italians got to join, and the Germans, and you know, even like white passing Spaniards, you know. That's the way it works, man.
And the ultimate twisted irony in all of this is that white people are paying for the very system that despises them. Despises us. We are funding our own destruction. If you look at the budget office, the statistics, the Census Bureau, all of that, these numbers absolutely do not lie. White people, per capita, are a massive net positive to the social programs in this country. We keep the machine running. We pay the suffocating taxes. We pave the roads. We run the hospitals. We keep the lights on. It is an undeniable empirical fact that white households are a net contributor to the welfare state, while black households overly represent the consumers of those same exact social programs. And by the way, this isn't me saying black people.
Dude. White people pay into taxes. Black people pay into taxes. We are all subject to the same tax code that you are talking about here. Okay, that's it. Black people, on average, make a lot less money than white people, and there are reasons for that. You know, like how they don't get callbacks when their last name sounds African, or their first name sounds black. Okay, that's right. For those of you that don't know, and I say this all the time, it is literally undeniable. If you submit a resume with a black-sounding name, you will not get callbacks. You won't. Okay, you will get far less offers on average. You'll be offered lower pay, lower compensation on average. That's how it works, okay? But that's not the only reason. Okay, because there's still intergenerational trauma. There is still over-policing of black neighborhoods, which bar you from moving up the tax bracket. That's how it works, man.
Because I don't actually think that. What I'm saying is the same group of people that says white people are so like evil, bad, it's just the white people again. We're paying for all their stuff. They overwhelmingly represent the consumers.
We are paying for all their stuff, really. Really, is that what we're doing? Is that what I'm doing as a white person? Am I paying for the black people for all their stuff?
Per capita.
Yeah, I don't think so,
dumbass. What per capita
means.
So I had to specify that there. But the entire American social safety network, whatever, got my words mixed up. They run on the sweat and the labor and the tax base of white working class and middle class families. We are literally subsidizing the people who hate us. But no matter what we do, no matter how much we pay, even though we have civil rights, white people ended slavery. White people are bad. Yeah, we are the oppressors. We have to be marginalized, and we can never, ever stand up for ourselves.
White people ended slavery. Is that so? Is that so? Because that's not how I remember history. Okay, white people played a pivotal role in ending slavery. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, like John Brown, he was awesome, right? A lot of the abolitionists were white, or most of them even. But no, like black people did in fact contribute to abolition.
I absolutely hate how white people have been beaten down.
You know, first of all, slavery wouldn't have been abolished when it was if black people weren't willing to fight for the Union, which they were, and they did. And that's why, and that's why Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
That they are utterly terrified to stand up and defend their own lives. It is actually ridiculous when you think about it. And if you disagree with my premise, if you are sitting there saying, "Oh, that's an exaggeration,"
because they were willing to put their lives on the line for the same institutions, the same system that enslaved them in the first place.
Why I say that white people have been meticulously bullied in silence over the past, 20, 30 years, something like that. First, look at the public education system. For decades, we have had kids in public schools and universities being brainwashed, heavily conditioned to believe that our history is radioactive, it is so bad, it is simply because white people built it. The only reason our society is good is because evil white people tortured everybody. Like, seriously, I won't get into the nitty-gritty of every single historical detail and try to debunk it, but it all boils down to an evil, anti-American curriculum that claims colonialism displaced everyone and therefore everything we have is stolen. But they conveniently leave out the reality of what
it did do that. And everything we do have is stolen. At least all the land that we're sitting on. And look, I'm not gonna sit here and we need to do a land acknowledgement. Oh, hey, Donut. Now I feel bad for that photo. What photo? What are you talking about? Something I'm not remembering. My bad, man. Anyway, let's keep going.
The people who built this country gave everyone else a standard of living that is unparalleled in human history. We gave the world free speech. We built a framework for freedom of religion. We created an economic engine. We can make as much money as you want. And everyone on the planet comes to America for that exact reason. Why do you think all these illegals come here? It's because life is better here.
Oh my god, man. Let's hear that again.
Anti-American curriculum that claims colonialism displaced everyone and therefore everything we have is stolen. But
that never happened. That never happened.
The people who built this country gave everyone else a standard of living that is unparalleled in human history. We gave the world free speech. We built a framework for freedom of religion.
Okay, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. We didn't give our ancestors didn't give us the gift of the American dream. Okay, I hate that. I hate that idea, right? It's a very pervasive idea. There is a single man who gave us the American dream, and his name was FDR. Okay, rest in peace, bro. Rest in peace. Now, you could say what you will about FDR, right? Everybody loves him. Okay, he's a classic president. Okay, he was a libtard, believe it or not. But he gave us his alphabet soup. And that is what allowed Americans to buy 2 cars and a house with the white picket fence on one income. And that's the American dream, bro. Throughout most of American history, living in America for the average person, right? Even the average person with white skin, okay? It was pretty miserable, right? It kind of sucked. Okay, let's be so for real. It was not a good time. Okay, and the early 1900s, that was probably the worst time to be an American. The most grueling. And then of course you had 2 world wars. You had rampant deregulation and rich people just killing us for menial profits. And that's how it was, okay? That's how it was back then. But something changed, okay? Labor regulation. There was a real labor movement in this country that had actual steam, had actual motion. Okay, and it all culminated in a plethora of unions making deals with the U.S. government, and that's how we got shit like the 40-hour work week and many other things as well. And that's why life in America was so nice for our parents. Okay? It wasn't because, white people built the country and it was real good and it's all great, okay? There's been a ton of turmoil in this country. And not even getting into the fact that the idea that white people built this country, the United States of America, is insane, okay? This country was built at its founding on the backs of enslaved people who were enslaved in the chattel slavery system.
We created an economic engine. We can make as much money as you want. And everyone on the planet comes to America for that exact reason. Why do you think all these illegals come here? It's because life is better here, obviously. Don't even blame them. That's a whole different topic. But anyways, we created the civil rights laws that they use against us. And by the way, white people ended slavery. We fought one of the bloodiest wars in our history against each other to end a practice that existed on every continent for 10,000 years. We ended it 250 years ago. Is anyone in 2026 actually still complaining about that? Yes, because they use it as an endless, fabricated tool to extract wealth and force moral submission from people who had absolutely nothing to do with it. Western civilization, the fact of the matter is, Western civilization is the most benevolent, self-critical society on Earth.
Black people just want you to feel bad for slavery, and they totally don't just want you to understand that slavery never ended and it has only evolved and continued
and that exact
in a different
openness
way.
has been weaponized by all these hostile actors, whether they're domestic or abroad, to destroy us from the inside out. And that psychological warfare has worked so completely that our people don't even know how to defend themselves anymore. Look at Austin Metcalf's father. I hate to say this, but I can't stop thinking about how insanely, unbelievably cucked his response was right after his own boy got murdered. It is unbelievably dishonorable behavior. The man's son, like his literal own flesh and blood, is stabbed in the chest. And what is his dad's response to all of this? You know what he says? He gets up, he says, he begs for harmony. He pleads with the public. Please don't make this about race. It's like, are you out of your mind? The other side is making it exclusively about race. They are screaming anti-white hatred outside the courthouse and raising $500,000 for the guy who killed your kid. And you are standing there apologizing? Are you kidding me? That is pathetic. It is the shameful behavior of a defeated, cowardly person. Now, I do have to ask, I do have to be fair here. Was this his genuine feeling, or did the police, or the DA, or the establishment, or whoever kind of like drag him into the back room, the metaphorical, not a literal one, and threaten him? You know, don't inflame this stuff. Think of the community. They actually do this, by the way. They systematically silence white victims. They force you to swallow your righteous anger, while the mob dances on your child's grave and raises $500,000 for a murderer. And white people who just lay down and accept this are pathetic. Straight up. This absolute escalation of racial tensions and blatant attacks towards white people is put on full, unfiltered display with this Carmelo Anthony trial. For example, look at the legal strategy that his attorneys used. In a sane, functional nation, a lawyer would be disbarred for attempting this. The only defense his legal team had was, essentially, he was a young black guy who, air quote, felt threatened in a white space. He should get special treatment. Think about how insane that argument is. Nobody touched him. He wasn't provoked. He was the sole violent aggressor. But they are relying on the toxic concept of black fragility.
Wait, what? No, that's not accurate.
His legal team had was, essentially, he was a young black guy who, air quote, felt threatened. Legal strategy. Just lay down and accept this are pathetic. Straight up. This absolute escalation of racial tensions and blatant attacks towards white people is put on full, unfiltered display with this Carmelo Anthony trial. For example, look at the legal strategy that his attorneys used. In a sane, functional nation, a lawyer would be disbarred for attempting this. The only defense his legal team had was, essentially, he was a young black guy who, air quote, felt threatened in a white space. He should get special treatment. Think about how insane that argument is. Nobody touched him. He wasn't provoked. He was the sole violent aggressor. What? They are relying.
Yeah, no, that's not what happened. Right? Like it's like I was saying earlier. His this stabbing, right? His self-defense wasn't acceptable. It wasn't excusable. Not based on the facts that have been presented to me and to the public so far. But the guy did push him. Like, you can't just lie. You can't just say, no, nobody touched him. Like, that's just not what happened, man. What?
On the toxic concept of black fragility that already exists in our corrupt institutions. They are worshipping a two-tiered, race-based justice system right in front of our eyes. They want to establish a legal precedent where the subjective racial paranoia of a black person justifies the premeditated murder of a white person. Because objectively, there's absolutely no defense for what
okay, all right. Now, I was told that in Texas they don't actually distinguish between first and second degree murder. I don't know if that's true. Right, I'm not a Texan lawyer. Clearly, do I look like a Texan lawyer? The answer is no, okay, and that's because I'm not one. But premeditation, it was premeditated, really. I don't agree with that, okay? I'm not a lawyer. I don't really see it as premeditated. Okay, the guy pushed him, he stabbed him, the kid died. It's a terrible thing, it sucks, it shouldn't have happened. But like, premeditate. That doesn't sound premeditated to me.
And what about the other kids at the track meet? Did anyone think about them? These are kids. These are children. This is the future of our country. We need to take care of them. You had a bunch of innocent teenagers watch a classmate get stabbed and die in front of them. Where's the trauma counseling for them? They probably got minimal, if anything, if they did.
Oh, come on. Come on, woke tard. Oh, where's the counseling? Like, I thought therapy was for pussy-ass bitches anyway.
These kids face retaliation is something we also gotta ask. Did they get any intimidation for daring to talk to the police? We'll never know because the media blacked the entire thing out when it first happened. The trauma inflicted on this predominantly white community doesn't fit the network agenda, so it's erased from history.
So it's so funny that he was just talking about how, like, the black person was like, schizophrenic or whatever. He was like, what did he say? He said he was like racially paranoid, right? I think that's what Jimmy Talk said. Dude, are you hearing yourself right now? Are you here? Oh, the police, they immediately started systematically suppressing everybody's speech. Like, yeah, man. Yeah, that's what happened.
If the races were reversed, CNN would have reporters camped out on the high school lawn for 6 months.
They put out a gag order. The judge put out a gag order.
Sports, the FBI would be raiding the parents' homes, but a white kid gets murdered by a black kid who hates him. Absolute radio silence. Total media blackout. I don't even want to be mean to black people, especially for no reason. I genuinely do not. It's just the natural collective response from white people when they start to actually notice the exact same pattern over and over again. No, I don't hate all black people. I truly don't. We are just simply noticing that in these cities and neighborhoods that are predominantly black, there is crime, chaos, and violence absolutely everywhere. These statistics do not lie. It's that simple. Everyone is sick and tired of walking on edge.
Okay, no, that's not accurate. Okay, I resent that. You are conflating arrest with crime, right? You're saying that because there's more arrest in the black neighborhoods, there must be more crime. And there's just not a correlation, right? Higher arrest rates just means that more people are being arrested. And it is a well-known fact that black neighborhoods are over-policed. There you go. There, you said it with me. Good job.
Black people just to avoid being called a racist. You can call me hateful and racist for saying that out loud, but it's not true. And frankly, I don't care anymore. Because you know what? Even honest
you never care. You never cared to begin. They always do this. They're like, oh, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to say it. Like, bro, you said the N-word in the last video multiple times. What do you mean? Oh, I don't care anymore. I don't care if they think I'm racist. Like, when the fuck did you? When did you ever care? I can't remember.
What I'm saying right now. This does not come from a place of malice. It comes from a place of basic survival. How many survival videos have I even put on YouTube? Plenty if you've been watching me for a while. This isn't just an American phenomenon either. This is a coordinated global war against white people. Look at the sheik in the UK who targeted a white kid. The exact same pattern every single time. Explicit, undeniable, anti-white violence swept under the rug by a totally complicit globalist media apparatus and the globalist governments, while the perpetrators are shielded by a corrupt legal system. They are importing and protecting violent proxies to destabilize Western civilization. Anti-white hatred has gone totally off the fucking rails. We are getting sick of it. Carmelo Anthony deserves the death penalty. Period. It was clearly motivated by nothing other than pure racial hatred for white men. The courts need to make a terrifying example out of these pieces of shit to send an unequivocal message that this sort of evil will not be tolerated in our society ever again. Giving him 35 years with the possibility of walking out on parole when he's just entering his 30s is an absolute disgrace to the memory of Austin Metcalf and his family. Whether his family is real or not, it's
he'll be 36. He'll be well into his 30s.
Just about race. That's what it's about, though. That's why he died. Carmelo will be out enjoying the prime of his life and breathing free air, while Austin Metcalf is in the ground in a casket. So when you see these mobs of people outside the courthouse acting completely unhinged and crying and upset that Carmelo Anthony was being found guilty of murder, because that's exactly what he did, you need to...
That's assuming he's on his best behavior, by the way, okay? He could spend, he could be getting out in his 50s? I mean, it's hard for me to, like, not feel bad for someone that most of their life is just gone. You know, and they have to spend it in shitty America prison, which is the worst on the planet, by the way, probably. So, you know, at the same time, like, obviously, he murdered this person. You know, he killed that kid, and he didn't deserve it. So... Anyway.
Understand something fundamental about the psychology at play here. It is not because they thought he was innocent. No one actually thinks that. They know exactly what he did with that knife. They are just upset that the jury made a ruling that you can't just, I don't know, casually stab white people in the heart and not go to prison. That is what it's all about. They want the rules rewritten, so they have an absolute impunity to kill us, and they are enraged that the system worked against them for once. So, yeah, my final thoughts on this, to close this...
I mean, I think it's more like, if a white person had done this to a black person, like, think about Kyle Rittenhouse, right? He got away with it. He murdered those people. He murdered them. Okay, he got away with it because he's white. If he had been a black person and done it, he'd be dead or he'd be in jail. Or he'd be dead in jail. Okay, he'd be something other than what he is right now. And it's the same thing with the guy that killed George Floyd. Whatever the fuck his name is. I forgot. You know, that guy's walking free right now. But if he were black and he had done it to a white person, come on. Come the fuck on, man. And that's just the way it works. Anyway.
Video off. I would say the time for being polite is over. The time for apologizing for your own existence is also over.
When have you ever done that?
Ideology and an infrastructure that wants you erased, and they will use every dark money network and every media corporation and every corrupt academic institution.
Nobody wants you to do that.
Stand up,
but also you've never done that.
And reject the guilt that they're trying to force feed you, and stop letting these psychopathic people, no, not black people, the psychopaths who are in charge of this, when we look at the bigger picture, like I just explained, destroy everything that our ancestors bled to build. Okay? This doesn't mean go out and attack random black people, go and be a nuisance. No, actually, you don't even have to do that. Stop apologizing for being white. It's totally okay to be white. Stop being afraid of being called racist when you don't even say anything that's racist. It's seriously, it's that ridiculous. Are we over 2016 yet? When all that started to like come into fruition a lot more? 2014, a little bit before that. It doesn't really matter. You put a year on it. People are being afraid of being called racist. Someone's gonna be Jimmy's a fucking Nazi. Jimmy's a white supremacist. Is this a Klan rally or something? It just doesn't even matter what you say, because they've been brainwashed and just hate us. God made us different for a reason. He made us all different. He didn't make white people to have them get genocided. He didn't make them for that reason. It's absolutely ridiculous. You don't make peace with people. So that's all I got to say about that. Guys, make sure you follow me on Rumble in case YouTube tries to nuke me for obvious reasons. I mean, look at what we're talking about right now. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter as well. Engage with the community. We have good people on the Jimmy Talks Twitter community. Everyone's pretty chill, actually. There's even black people that follow me. They say they love me. Ain't that something, you know? It's just because a real white nigga speaks.
I have a black friend.
All right. So lastly, well, actually not lastly, Patreon, $5 a month for the subscription, just to support the channel. I don't take sponsorships and shit like that. So that's all it is. There's no extra content. It's just to support me if you like my stuff. If you don't want to give $5 a month, you're going to get the content anyways. So it doesn't really matter if you do it or not. To be quite honest with you, a lot of you should probably just be saving your money. Get rid of all the stupid subscriptions you have, yada yada. That's a whole different can of worms. And lastly, the IOCC donation link is down below. This is the International Orthodox Christians Charities. This helps Orthodox Christians that are in war zones, namely Ukraine, get their lives back together, helps them build churches, helps them get icons, helps them pray again, make sure that everybody's safe, secure, and they're able to honor God the right way. So very important to me. Not sponsored by them, not even a part of them. They're just a good organization. To my research on them, it's not going to be some bullshit. So all those links are in the description down below. All right, guys, I will see you all in the next one. God bless you.
Yeah, man, that video sucked.